One of the biggest upgrades you can make to a home lab isn't a new server or faster storage. It's being able to access everything when you're not home. In this video, we're going to look at how to safely and securely configure WireGuard on a UniFi cloud gateway so you can have a secure tunnel back into your home network. Before we get started, there is one quick warning. WireGuard needs an inbound connection to your UniFi gateway. If you're behind double NAT, which is an ISP router in front of your UniFi cloud gateway, or CGNAT, meaning your ISP doesn't give you a real public IP address, this will not work until you fix that. If you don't or can't fix that, you'll have to use an alternative like UniFi Teleport or Tailscale. Before we get started, VPN servers are confusing for a lot of people. I'm going to do my best to make this as beginner friendly and A to Z as I can, but if you need help with this, and you're interested in hiring me or my company, I will leave a link to that in the description so that we could help you out with that. So this is a lab environment, and what you'll see is under this WAN IP address, I do have a private IP address here. This is what I was saying earlier, that if you have this situation, you have to fix this before this will work. So this is the first prerequisite that you have to fix. The second is that this IP address is most likely not static, meaning that it could potentially change. If you have a static IP address, you don't have to worry about this next step. But if you don't, you should configure something called dynamic DNS. Dynamic DNS ensures that if this IP address ever changes, that dynamic DNS address will update as well and ensure that you're able to connect back home no matter what the public IP address is that your ISP is handing you. Now, this is where things get a little different with UniFi. If you go into the settings here and then you go into internet, you can select your main WAN and you can go into the manual section and configure dynamic DNS. If you have multiple WAN connections, you cannot really use this. And the reason is because you can only configure dynamic DNS on the individual WAN interface. If you have multiple, you would actually have multiple DDNS connections here, and then you're not going to know which one to use. So my recommendation is that if you have one WAN connection, you configure dynamic DNS here. If you have multiple, you should probably configure it on a device internally. There are a ton of devices that allow you to configure it. I have a bunch of tutorials that I will leave links to in the description. This is going to be the most fluid portion of this tutorial because there are so many ways that you can configure DDNS. It's not necessarily right to do it here, but it's also not necessarily wrong to do it here. So it depends on your setup. If you are going to set it up here, you have to select a provider. My recommendation is to use Cloudflare if you have your own domain that you purchased. If you did not purchase a domain, there are a bunch of options here. DuckDNS I have used in the past. I'm not going to say from an uptime perspective it's the best, but it is entirely free. I have an article that I will leave for DuckDNS in the description. With that said, all of these other options in one way or another can be used, but they may not be free. So if they're not going to be free, one of the cheapest ways is just to buy your own domain and then configure it with Cloudflare. And I have a link that I'll leave in the description for that as well in terms of how you could set it up. With that said, the setup will be slightly different for every single one of these. So be aware of that, but this is one of the most important steps for this tutorial. And again, you do not have to configure it here. If you have something like a Synology NAS, it gives you a free dynamic DNS host name that has been incredibly reliable. I used it for many years. You can set it up there. You do not have to set it up here, but this is one of the most important steps of this tutorial. So with that out of the way, we are going to head back and we are going to go into VPN here. And you're going to see this VPN server. So what we're going to be doing is configuring WireGuard as a VPN server. And Ubiquiti makes this extremely simple. So in this VPN server section, we're going to create a new VPN server. And then what you're going to see is a few options here. I'm going to call this WireGuard. And now you're going to see options below this. Now this is where that dynamic DNS comes into play. So this server address here is dynamically assigned, and Ubiquiti knows that. So the recommendation is to configure dynamic DNS. That's why that first step is so important. After you configure dynamic DNS, what you should do is select Use Alternate Address for Clients, and then you should come in and put in your DDNS domain name that you will be using here. This ensures that when we configure clients, it will automatically use this domain name rather than trying to use your IP address. Now, if you have a static IP address, leave this unchecked and it will automatically use this in the configuration file, and that's fine. But again, most people will not have static IP addresses. So with that out of the way, there's a few things that we have to talk about here. So you're going to see this private key and this public key. This is for the VPN server itself. You don't have to worry about this at all. You can leave this as is. In the manual section here, you will see that this is the subnet that the device has picked to automatically use. You can change this to be whatever you want. You just have to make sure you use something that is not currently in use. So I'm going to use 120 because I know that is not currently in use. And then I'm going to add this. Now, technically, at this point, WireGuard is actually configured. That's how easy it is. But there's a few things that I want to talk through. So if we head back to the zone-based firewall, you will see WireGuard is now part of our VPN zone. You'll also see if we go to the external and gateway zone here and we scroll down, you will see allow WireGuard VPNs. So this port right here, destination port, and UDP is the port that WireGuard uses. So when you hear port forwarding and you have to be able to port forward in order to use WireGuard, this is what it's doing. It's basically exposing that port so that you can connect to it externally, and that's why having a public WAN IP address is important. So with that out of the way, we're going to head back to the VPN server. We're going to go back to WireGuard, and now we have to configure clients. So what you're going to see here is this Add Client button, and this is very straightforward depending on exactly what you want to do. So I'm going to name this Android, and then we're going to have a few options down here. If you wanted to just use an automatic default setup, you can enlarge this QR code in the WireGuard application on your phone, scan this QR code, and everything would work as expected. The account would be added to your device, and then as long as you selected Add here, it would automatically connect back, and then you can technically test this VPN server from an external network on your mobile device. So disconnect from Wi-Fi, connect to your mobile network, connect to the VPN, and then everything should work as expected. The other option you can do is you can download the VPN configuration file, and when you do, this is what you're going to see. Now, this VPN configuration file can be added to any WireGuard client. This could be for something like your laptop or your PC, depending on exactly what you're using. But what you're going to see is a few things here. This is the IP address that this client will be using. This is the DNS server that this client will be using. The peer, this is the connection back to your WireGuard VPN server. And then allowed IPs here, this is the important part. So 0.0.0.0/0 is a full tunnel VPN. What that means is that all of your traffic will be routed through this VPN server. So if you are on public Wi-Fi, this protects that connection because all of your traffic will be routed first to this VPN server. That also can hurt performance. So if you're on a public Wi-Fi connection that's slow, all of your traffic has to route first to your VPN server. My recommendation is to use a full tunnel VPN because then at that point, no matter where you are, you'll ensure that your connection is always routing back through this VPN server. But for some people, that's not an option. And that's where you want to look into something called a split tunnel VPN. So if I minimize this here and we go back to this section, you'll see we have a manual option. That allows us to do a few things. That allows us to change the IP address for this client. So if you wanted something specific, you could change it. That allows us to configure a pre-shared key and remote client networks. So the pre-shared key technically improves security because you're introducing, let's say, a password into this. So if this pre-shared key did not match, the connection would drop. I like to enable this, but you don't always have to. It depends on your risk tolerance. But since it's there, I like to check it off. The next thing is this remote client networks. This remote client network section is going to be optional for most people. Probably 98+% of people are not going to utilize this, but you could optionally add routes to the WireGuard server for subnets that are located at that location. Most people are not going to use this. But if I download that configuration file, what you will see now is that the pre-shared key has been added. So if you wanted to utilize a pre-shared key, this is where you would check it off. Now, we talked about the allowed IPs in terms of split tunnel versus full tunnel, etc. If you wanted a split tunnel VPN, which means that all of your traffic is routed out whatever network you're currently connected to, but only certain traffic is routed through the VPN server, this is where you would modify it. And what you can see is you can add multiple subnets. So if you had a trusted subnet, a IoT subnet, and you wanted all of that traffic to be routed through this VPN server, this is where you would specify it. I would just recommend that you do the VPN subnet as well, which is 192.168.120. So right now, the only traffic that would route through this VPN server are these two subnets here. So that's going to be your full tunnel versus split tunnel. Technically, you can create one client that has both VPN types. So you can have one configuration file and utilize a full tunnel connection as well as a split tunnel connection, then pick whichever you want to use. Now, this WireGuard configuration file, if you were utilizing the WireGuard app on macOS, that's what I'm currently on, you can come in here, add an empty tunnel, and then technically paste all that information in. Give it a name, save it, and then at this point, this is our VPN tunnel. So if I was on a remote network, I would just come in here, activate it, it would connect back, and then I'd be able to utilize this VPN server and connect back from wherever I am to my local network. Now keep in mind, again, this is a split tunnel VPN, so only these subnets would route over that VPN tunnel. The only other thing to comment on is this endpoint here, this ddns.mydomain.com. This is what I set up as my dynamic DNS domain name. Yours is going to be different, and 51820, that's the port that WireGuard is using. That matches this information here, and then the domain name matches this. If I did not select this, what you would see is this IP address in that configuration file. So the configuration file here is where WireGuard gets to be confusing for a lot of people. Ubiquiti makes this very simple. You don't really have to worry about any of this. I'm trying to explain what each does, but you have a public key and a private key on the VPN server as well as the VPN client. And both of those devices are basically aware of the public key on each of them. So the VPN server is aware of the VPN client, and the VPN client is aware of the VPN server's public key. And as long as those match, the connection will be allowed. Again, if you're utilizing a mobile device, the easiest thing is to download the app on that phone, scan the QR code, select this here, scan this, and it will automatically transfer all of this information to that device. Just make sure that you add the client when you're done, and you'll see it here, and then you apply the changes, and that saves that VPN client. Now, you're going to configure this for all of your VPN devices. One could be your mobile phone, one could be your laptop, your spouse's phone, etc. Whoever needs to connect back, you're going to create one client for each of those devices. So with that out of the way, the last thing that I want to talk through is the firewall. So what you'll see by default is that the VPN server can access just about everything except for our untrusted zone, which I created in a prior video. If you're interested in seeing how this was all configured, I have a setup guide that I will leave a link to. But this is where things can get interesting for a lot of people. So by default, every VPN client can connect to everything on your local network except for any new zones that you create. If you wanted these VPN clients to be able to access those zones, you would have to create a firewall rule for it. So I'm going to create a basic rule here that says allow VPN to untrusted. The source zone will be VPN. The action will be allow. These destination zone would be untrusted. And as soon as I add that policy, what you'll see is this will change to allow all. Now, this is where it can get interesting because you might want to create deny rules. By default, you might not want your VPN server to connect to everything. And this is where you can configure all of this. So by default, external gateway and VPN is generally fine. You can leave all this. You can customize it if you want, but you don't have to. But in our internal zone, we have a management VLAN. And let's say we didn't want the VPN devices to be able to access the management VLAN. Well, you would create a policy for that. Name it deny VPN to management. The source zone would be VPN. The destination zone would be internal. But the difference here is that we're going to select network. We are going to select our management network. We're going to save that. Ensure the action is blocked. We're going to add that policy. And then what we're saying is that by default, the VPN zone cannot access the management VLAN in the internal zone. It can access everything else, but it cannot access the management VLAN. You might have to or want to do this for your setup. You don't have to do any of this. If you say all of my VPN clients, I want to be able to access everything, then you don't have to worry about any of this. But if limiting connections is important to you, this is where you would limit that access. And again, this is also where you would allow that access in the case of the untrusted zone. So at this point, the only other thing that you have to worry about doing is adding all of your clients. As long as you configure the VPN server correctly, then the firewall rules, if you wanted to, you would come in here, configure all of your clients, and then give them that configuration file, and then they would be able to connect. Again, the only thing you have to really worry about is full tunnel versus split tunnel, and determine which client should utilize each. If you don't want to think about it, just utilize a full tunnel VPN. That's going to be the default, and it'll be the easiest to manage for most people. So VPN servers are a lot, and they're confusing to a lot of people. And as I was going through the video, I realized how confusing this can be, because especially with WireGuard, those keys that just look like random strings of letters and numbers are very important. But with Ubiquiti, you really don't have to worry about it because they handle all of that. You're going to configure the VPN server, you're going to configure your clients, and by default, they will automatically have the correct keys in place. So you don't really have to worry about that. Like I said earlier, just configure the VPN server, make sure that all of your VPN clients are configured, and then as long as you have a public IP address from your ISP and you configure dynamic DNS if needed, everything should connect and work as expected. So again, if you have any trouble and you want to hire me or my company for this, I will leave a link to that in the description. But if you have any questions, please feel free to leave those in the comments. But other than that, if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.